Today, we're going to dive into this really profound idea from Ethiopia. It's an entire worldview that's been hiding in plain sight, basically encoded right into the country's most famous food.
I mean, think about that for a second. What if a simple, everyday thing could hold the key to a culture's entire history, its memory, maybe even its understanding of the universe? Well, for the Ethiopian author Adam Reta, that object is injera, the spongy, fermented flatbread. So let's see how he pulls this off.
All right, so our story really kicks off with the acclaimed Ethiopian writer Adam Reta. See, after the 1974 Ethiopian Revolution, he looked around and saw a society in chaos. And the old ways of telling stories, with a neat beginning, middle, and end, they just didn't cut it anymore. They didn't feel true to the fractured world he was living in. So you can see why he felt this way, right? This complete breakdown of linear storytelling meant he needed a totally new form, a new metaphor, to try and capture this complex, kind of messy world. And where did he find his new model? In something so quintessentially Ethiopian, something he calls the edible book, injera. Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. We have to start looking at injera not just as something you eat, but as, well, as a kind of text. Reta literally deconstructs it, analyzing every physical part of it to build this incredibly powerful metaphor for reality itself. Let's break this down. First, the injera is round, which is a classic symbol for wholeness. But the really crucial part is its structure. When you look at the surface, you see thousands of these little holes, or eyes, that all look like separate, independent dots. But, and this is the key, underneath that surface, they're all connected by this hidden maze of tiny tunnels. It's this perfect metaphor, right? What looks like total separation on the surface is actually hiding this deep, deep unity underneath. And this, right here, just brilliantly lays out the huge shift in thinking he's talking about. The traditional Western idea, which he calls the monad, basically sees everything as a totally independent unit, like a single short story, all wrapped up and complete on its own. But the Indera model? It says no way. Nothing exists in a vacuum. Every story, every person, every single I is fundamentally connected to everything else through this incredibly complex network. So this whole new way of looking at the world, this new way of writing, it needed a name. And the one Reta came up with is just perfect for this idea of connection. Hitsinawinet. So, Hitsinawinet isn't just some abstract idea. It's both a philosophy and a practical tool for writers. It gives them a way to create stories that actually mirror that interconnected, maze-like structure of injera, and by doing that, mirror reality itself. And get this, the name itself is this incredible puzzle box, and it comes from the ancient Ge'ez language. It's actually built from two words that both mean empty space. The first is mahastin, which is the space inside a letter, and also means womb. The second is histon, the space between letters. So for Reta, these gaps, these meaningful spaces, are just like the eyes of the injera. So what's the whole point of Hitsinawinet? Well, it's about writing into those empty spaces, the gaps you find between stories, between people, between different events, and showing the hidden connections that were there the whole time. This is why it's not just a theory. Reta actually calls it a technology of connectivity. Okay, now this is where the idea gets even deeper. Reta believes that memory, actual cultural memory, is literally stored inside the injera. And to get why he thinks that, we have to go way back to the origin myth of teff, that tiny little grain they used to make the bread. For Reta, this isn't just a fairy tale, it's a way of retrieving ancient knowledge. So the story goes like this. Way back, around 1500 BC, you've got this king, Sendake Agalama, who's also this brilliant scientist. He figures out a way to live for a super long time, over 400 years. But eventually he dies. And after he's gone, the famous Queen Makeda, the Queen of Sheba, faces this terrible famine. Desperate, she prays at the king's grave, and this strange grass starts to grow right there. Then, in a dream, she's told to harvest its seeds. That grass was teff, and it ended up saving her people. So, what are we supposed to take from a story like that? Well, for Reta, it shows that the ancients were intentionally embedding myster, which means mystery and deep knowledge, into everyday things. Teff isn't just a grain, it's a carrier of a huge idea about life and longevity and how we sustain ourselves. And that means the injera made from it, it becomes what he calls a panel of memory. All right, let's just pause for a second and see where we are. We've gone from a revolution to a piece of bread to this incredible ancient myth.
And now we can really start to see how all these threads are weaving together and how Hitsinawinet grows from just a literary tool into a whole worldview. What Rasha is really getting at is that injera acts as what the philosopher Stephen Pepper once called a root metaphor. Basically, that's a metaphor that is so deep and fundamental to a culture that it becomes the starting point for an entire way of understanding the world. It's a world hypothesis built on the idea of profound connectivity. Let me give you one last comparison because this one really hits it home. Traditional stories are like a classical labyrinth. There's one single path in and one path out. It's linear, it's predictable. But Hitsinawinet, which is modeled on injera, is like a true maze. It's got multiple entrances, multiple exits, and countless paths you can take. It represents a world of complexity and really infinite possibility. I mean, just think about how you actually eat injera. The sauce or the wet, it doesn't just sit there on top. It flows down into all those eyes, and it travels through that hidden network of tunnels. Reta argues that this is exactly how plot and meaning should move through a story, not in a boring straight line, but by seeping and connecting in all these unexpected ways. And then, just when you think the metaphor can't get any bigger, Reta takes it to a truly cosmic scale. He looks up at the night sky, at this vast network of stars against the dark, and he sees the exact same pattern. The universe itself, he's suggesting, is structured just like an injera. And that brings us to the end, with this simple but really profound instruction from the author himself. It's an invitation to look closer at the world you're in, to find the hidden connections in the most ordinary things, and maybe, just maybe, to find the entire universe in a simple piece of bread.